No
episode.
cussing at the front of this one because this one doesn't know how to edit that out.
Episode 2 of SE and Scrappy. And Lucas and I spent the weekend, well, not the weekend, but we spent on Sunday up in North Georgia for Beast of the Southeast. Before we get to those, why don't you just give me a general overview of the tournament or of the event?
Yeah. Beast of the Southeast. You had Team Georgia, Team North Carolina, Team South Carolina. They brought together some of their best guys. It seemed a bit more regional than I would have liked. North Carolina's crew was mainly combat athletics with some rally area kids. South Carolina, it was mainly reverence with Legacy Elite thrown into the mix as well. I would like to have seen it be a bit more full state scope. Even Team Georgia was mainly a lot of Roundtree kids, but that was to be expected. Event as a whole was fun to watch. Team Georgia took care of business, dominant in their two performances. North Carolina and South Carolina fought hard. North Carolina beat South Carolina. It kind of went the way I thought it would.
Yeah,
for the most part.
So let's jump into some highlights of North Carolina and Georgia first. All right, so I don't know, man. It was a pretty dominant performance by Georgia. Some good North Carolina highlights in there. If you were to kind of highlight one match or one kid from each team, what kind of stood out to you?
I mean, obviously, match of the duel for me was the Davis and Davis matchup between Cooper Davis and TK Davis at 126. No, 120.
120.
120. That was a great match. But performances wise, Jeremiah Price went out there against a very good Seth Larson and took care of business.
Yeah.
In a real way. And I mean, performances wise, both the Mills brothers were super dominant in their matches against North Carolina. So probably that would be my standouts from each. Yeah, Jeremiah Price, man, he's so good. That kid is ridiculous.
Yeah, and 152 was a tough weight, and yet he looked super good. I love the Waddell and Cage Williams were really close, and then
that was a good match too.
And then Waddell would throw him for 4, and we saw that in the clip. But that kind of ended up being the difference in those matches.
Yeah, agreed. I think those the 4-point throws he got were obviously it was the difference maker. Both those two, I'd love to see them run it back for sure.
All right, so we moved from Georgia, North Carolina, to South Carolina, North Carolina. First seen South Carolina on the mats this time. And like you said, it was predominantly certain clubs. And I know you kind of were like whole state-wise, and I agree with you. Although I did like the fact that we got to see, you know, some new kids kind of enter, get their opportunity. And I think that's really important, to try to, it's tough to go out there and compete against Jake Crouch,
No, it absolutely is. No, I get that. I get that entirely. But I feel like if you're going to call it Team Georgia, Team South, I feel like you should have more unregionality to it if it was up to me.
I got you. All right. So let's take a look at North Carolina, South Carolina. Cool. All right. So, man, North Carolina bounced back, took care of business against South Carolina. But as you saw, I mean, again, just there were some really good matches. I mean, I don't know, Weiland, Price, woo.
I mean, so the score of that one, I'm pretty sure Price got the tech, and you would assume if you watch that match, Price dominant, which he did. But damn, Isaiah Weiland gave him everything he could handle and wrestled him really good. Like it wasn't a matter of Price like just dominating him. It was just Price was just that little bit better in every encounter that they had.
Jack Weiland.
Yes, I'm thinking of Isaiah Wysong, who was some,
Wysong,
who was supposed to be there.
Ended up who wasn't there. Yeah,
absolutely. And real quick, shout out to Jada Lawrence. Shout out to her, by the way, on last minute as a girl coming into a male tournament with a lot of hammers. Shout out to her, bro.
Right, she's stepping up and not giving up a forfeit for your team. Going out and competing.
I mean, basically, and when it comes to the dual meet, I mean, if you look at my Beast of the Southeast rankings when they come, or my Southeast 7 rankings, it basically fell in line with the way the rankings worked out.
Yeah, well, and we're gonna touch it on maybe next week. I don't know, maybe a couple weeks. So, if you were to pick out one match besides Price versus Weiland in that North Carolina South Carolina duel, do you have one? Come on, think about it. No, you remember the one. Ricky Springs
Oh,
Cooper
yeah, that
Davis
was a
with that
war.
wild sequence at the very beginning of that match.
Yeah, no, that was a war, and then the pace kind of slowed down, but still, that was a great match. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
113. The problem is I don't know Carolina's guys' names as much, so I see faces and I see the moments, and I'm just like, oh God, what were their names? I'm like, wait, but yeah, that was a really good match. 113.
All right, so let's jump to South Carolina, Georgia's highlights from Sunday. Yeah. Georgia, South Carolina. I mean, Georgia took care of business on the scoreboard, but man, South Carolina had some good kids produce some good wins. Wyland over Larson, Case and Howell over Matthew Waddell. I mean, that was
a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that foot sweep. I love Seth Larson, that's my boy, but ew.
Yeah, that was hard.
That was saucy. That was saucy.
You know,
Like,
one thing I think that stood out to me was in all the matches was that, man, you can't give up your legs in parterre. If you give up, if the person gets a lace,
you bring your ass back.
Man, they just could not stop it. They just couldn't really stop the leg lace, no matter who it was. So trying to get those laces, and I know Roundtree, man, they were working for those laces big time.
Oh, well, because I think they kind of recognize that it might have been an idiosyncrasy in their game where, oh, we just wrap their legs and they can't do anything about it. Okay, see.
All right, so as an event overall, it was a great Sunday afternoon. I mean, 3 good duels, a lot of good wrestling, a lot of fun. I hope that Sammy invites a couple other states in, and we get to do it again next spring. That'd be pretty cool.
Great, I'd love it. Like I said, I made the comment on the live stream and make it again. If your state was in the Confederacy, we want you at these duels.
Yeah. All right.
Geographically speaking, I'm correct.
Yes, you are.
Virginia and South, and if you want to bring Texas in, sure, why not? Be done.
All right.
Have the championship be a Stars and Bars flag trophy.
Oh my gosh. All right. So
book it, Sammy.
Let's move to our middle segment of this week's show. And it was you having a conversation with BMoney Beastin. Is that right? BMoney Beastin?
Yeah, BMoney Beastin's Drennen. Yep. Me and him had a good conversation about what BMoney Beastin actually is. And it's funny that we're doing this today because I just got my shoes in today. They just got here in the mail.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and I wore them today when I worked out. I really like them. I would compare them to aggressors, as in the sense of it's one sole, a good sole. You got some gripping on the side that I like, and it has a good feel to it. It almost feels more stable, almost closer to a boxing shoe in a type of way, and I really like it. And it's an entry-level wrestling shoe for entry-level kids that don't necessarily want to spend $150 on a new shoe. He sells them at $49.99, no shipping cost. I really happy they were able to get you on the show. So do me a favor, for those who may not be as familiar, why don't you give us a little walk through what BMoney Beastin actually is?
All right. I'll give you the shortest version I can of how this kind of came to be.
So we'll be here for an hour, lads.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make it as quick as possible. But man, I'll just go back. When I was a kid, I grew up real poor. I didn't have a whole lot. I was homeless at one point. A lot of economical issues. So that kind of played into what I'm trying to do with this. In 2014, my son had an Xbox, and he came up with the term BMoney Beastin with a $ in front of the B and the apostrophe. I don't know where a 5-year-old came up with that, but he did. And I was like, dude, that's cool. So I wrote it down on a notepad. I folded it up. It was in my wallet for like years. And then eventually when he got on social media, he started hashtagging stuff BMoney Beastin. Everything was BMoney Beastin. Wasn't really sure where it came from, what it was. One year during Little League Baseball, when he was like 7 or 8, they put BMoney on the back of his jersey, right? And then they had like walkout songs, and WWE, Shane McMahon's like walkout songs like that.
Here comes the money, yeah.
And
awesome.
When he'd walk out to bat, they play that "Here Comes the Money," right? I don't know.
That's cool. Awesome.
So it's always been like an interchanging thing with Bryson. And a couple years ago, I did really well with my company I work for full time. And most people, what they do when they do well is they buy a new car, or they buy a house or a new house or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty simple. I don't need a whole lot, right? Like I'm really happy with my life. And I was like, you know what? I want to build this into something, but I'm not sure what it can be. So it started out, I was like, okay, I'm going to make affordable apparel, right? But that really ended quickly, like within maybe a month. I was like, this is not it. Like, I still have a direct to garment printer back there that I haven't used in like 4 months. But that was the original idea. And then as time went on, I was like, there's got to be this niche where I can give back and something that doesn't really exist. And I don't know what did it. It was around Christmas. And Bryson asked me, he said, Dad, I want those Rudis Rockies for Christmas, the Rockies. And I looked, and I remember they were like, what, 170 or something like that. And I was like, they were high. And I was like, dude, that's it. That's it. And then I started doing research, and now this is before Christmas. This is back like November, October-ish. And I did like two and a half months of research. I finally nailed down a vendor that could do what I was trying to put together for the version 1. We put them for sale like the third week in January. We started with 160 pairs, I think. We're down to 78 right now. Now, every 2 that I sold, I was donating a pair. Today, actually, I donated to a club. I sent 12 pair to a club in a really economically challenged area of Colorado to give back to them. Once the version 2 comes in, we should have them up for sale roughly middle to late May, early June at the latest. We're going to sell those at $49.99, free shipping all day long, wherever you're at in the United States, of course. So it just kind of morphed in from one thing to another. We do some other stuff like football accessories and stuff like that, apparel, but like we're really just focusing on the affordable wrestling shoe. And I kind of match it up to like Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq has the Shaq brand shoes at Walmart that are like, $30-$40, and there's nothing like that in the wrestling space. So that's what the void I'm trying to fill with it.
And that makes sense. I mean, coming from you and I had really similar upbringings, when it comes to financial hardship. I mean, that's kind of in the long run what made me start Fat and Scrappy was a real similar ideal. So kind of walk us through, you talked about the version 2s. So kind of walk us through, what's the difference between the V1s and the V2s, and when you think you're gonna be able to release the V2s to the public.
I'd use the version 1s, which I like them. Some people really like them, some people don't, right? It's a color scheme thing, I feel like, more than anything.
Yeah.
But you had to have a jumping off point, right? You got to start. And I went through for months and I found this vendor that gave me the price point that was within reason that I could still sell these at a good point. And because you got to think, I ship all of our shoes in drawstring bags. In the instance,
Yeah.
kids don't have a backpack. So that's an additional cost, right? So you got to wrap that together. Bryson had the idea. He had a pair of the Jordan Burroughs gold shoes back like 5 or 6 years ago. And he's like, dude, gold was cool. So like that was kind of his idea. The version 1s are essentially gold black with our logo schemes through it. The next ones are actually, and they're made of like a leather. Not a tough leather, but like a leather based material. The next version 2s are made more of a mesh material. They're a little lighter. The sole's a little different. They're jet black, and they have a really similar look to like the Nike Inflicts. Have you ever seen the Nike Inflicts?
Yeah. Okay.
They have a very similar look to those, and that's kind of what I was going for, was clean, slick, and simple. And they're completely jet black. I actually like them. I like them both. The version 1s have a boxing shoe feel, which I think is kind of cool, and the version 2s have like the Inflict feel. So like my goal is, once each version's gone, they're gone, right? They're not going to come back.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a crazy demand. Hey, that's the shoe we want, right? That's,
obviously, yeah.
But
If you've got to meet the market, you're going to meet the market, obviously.
correct. But in general, when the version 1s are gone, that's their history. When the version 2s are gone, then in the middle of that's when we start determining what's V3, right? In the middle of V3, we determine what's V4, and it just continuously going. So whatever's produced each round, like the version 2 will have 500 pairs, right? And they're going to have 500 pairs broke up from size 1 to 11. And whenever they're gone, they're gone. And then you move on, get ready for version 3, which I've already have ideas for version 3 because I think way, way ahead. But but that's how I think I'm going to build it until I get to an established point to where, okay, I can do like I may change the name up, but I started with the versions. Eventually, I may just do, I may come up with cool like kick names for different shoe styles.
Yeah.
But for now, it's version 1, and then version 2 is on the way. And that's, we're trying to make a difference. And my son wore these at region and state this year because we got them right in time for qualifiers, I believe.
Yeah.
And he liked them. And it seems like we're gaining some traction on social media. And everybody's had some. I've had good reviews on the website. I'm really excited about what the future could be for this thing.
All right. So Coach Jesse Drennen talked about BMoney Beastin. We'll try to put all the information down in the show notes. I know he just did a version 1, working on version 2. I'd really love, you to go out and work out in them for a week or 2 or something like that. And then you and I will have to talk about it. Is that cool?
Yeah. I will say on first wear, I like them a lot. I'd like to see them over, like you said, about a week, just so I could start kind of seeing how's the wear and tear going to be. But I will say it does have a nice amount of grip, especially for a shoe that is rather light. I was kind of surprised. But it feels good up top. There's good ankle support, but I still feel like I could flex my ankle. I'd highly recommend them, genuinely. Like, don't be surprised if next season you see me wearing these. Like, I'm genuinely serious. Like, especially because me and him have talked about working together more, because I want to promote anything that's good for the culture, trying to push the culture, and that's what he's trying to do. So I want to be a part of anything that does that.
All right. So a couple of days ago, actually, it was more like a week or so ago, I posted on Facebook different coach openings because I've been getting some information back channel about this opening, that opening, and this and that and everything else. So not unusual, but there are quite a few openings across the Southeast. And I got a lot from Georgia, got some from North Carolina. Probably the biggest one that stands out is Ford High School. Coach Carey at Ford. They've won state title after state title. He is retiring from coaching. His son, he wants to watch his son wrestle at Davidson and that sort of thing. So keep an eye out for that. I talked to Josh Boston at Cleveland, and they're really trying to build the girls. I know he's looking for coaches up there, but there's lots of coaching opportunities across the Southeast. So make sure that you go to the page and check that out.
All right. And if you're a guy who's looking for a job, I'd say that it's paramount that you go look at this.
Well, yeah, and you know what? If you want to reach out to us, and if we can somehow put you in connection or something along those lines,
yeah, exactly.
Happy to do so. All right, because quality coach is super important, and turnover coach is super important too.
Yeah. And they are a high value commodity that doesn't come around too often.
Absolutely. All right, so let's make our transition, and this is our final one. This is our last segment. It is U.S. Open week in Vegas. We got U15s, U17s. What is it? U20s, U20s, senior men, senior women, a high school girls showcase. I mean, just tons of wrestling out in Vegas, and we've got a lot of entries in the Southeast. Why don't we start with, I'm not really going to talk about the U15s much. There are some younger, we cover them a little bit, but not a ton. Let's jump to the U17s and talk about, in freestyle, it's 60 kilos. There are 116 entrants at 60 kilos. And there's quite a few, from the Southeast. Who at U17 are you most interested in kind of seeing how they wrestle?
Are you saying just at 60 kilograms or as a whole?
No, as a whole.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to kind of go down the states list because there's a couple in each. Out of Alabama, a guy like Brody Christmas to me at 51 kilograms. That's a big one for me. Got Florida, a couple names that immediately jump off the page. A big one is Christian Fretwell at that meat grinder that is 60 kilograms. In Georgia, a bit more knowledge for me. Obviously, Logan Paradise at 65 keys. Emil Necula also at 65 keys. Former world team member in Blue Stifler also at 65 kilograms. And Jacob Levy up top at 110. South Carolina sending Mason Persons at 80 kilograms. And guys like Cooper Hilton, Ollie Phillips, and Hunter Sturgill for Tennessee and Jose Cordero as well jump off the page to me. Just as guys that I think will really go make some noise at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, no, and I the only one that I might add, there's a lot of names that you can talk to or talk about. And again, we don't want to list everybody and everything else. We're going to post all the registration for as of Monday, April 24th. Because they can still register. So there might be a few other people added to this. But one of the people is CJ Torres from Florida, who beat Bambinelli in the NHSCA finals. Go ahead.
I see Claudio. I'm used to CJ. That's what got. Yeah, CJ Torres is a killer. So yes, that's another.
Claudio. It's okay.
No, Claudio's a majestic name. I'm gonna start calling him Claudio now. It's majestic.
All right, so let's jump to U20 freestyle and Greco. Now, this is one that is kind of interesting to me because there are different weights for freestyle and Greco.
Yeah,
and that's a bit unusual. And for those wrestlers who are wrestling both styles, sometimes we have people drop weights, but it's a little strange. So
absolutely.
Let's start with the freestylers. And one of the things that's most fun for me about the U20s is we have this really unique combination of kids who are still, or athletes who are still in high school and those that are in college, right?
It's a fascinating bracket and it creates a lot of great opportunities for some good matches. If it's cool with you, I'm going to do the same thing, kind of go state by state here. Corey Land at Alabama, obviously, and James Latona, two guys that jump off the page. You look at Florida, and there's a whole gaggle of people, but immediately off the page to me, Kendrick Kendrick Hodge, Brandon Abden, Bartelton Vergara up top. Excuse me. Out of Georgia, we got Cole Hunt, Dominic DiTomaso, Team Fat and Scrappy member Dominic DiTomaso, Drew Gorman, Joshua Henry, that's my boy Tyrese. A quick shout out to him. Michael Killick, Camden Monroe, Gunnar Flipowitz, Noah Pettigrew, and of course, Big Mama Chase Horn up top. Out of North Carolina, Jeremiah Price and Damon Landreth are the two that kind of jump off the page to me. We got to watch Jeremiah on Sunday, and boy, he's looking sharp. Tennessee, Logan Fowler, Cody Chittum. That's really the guys that for me jump off the page.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to go ahead and add another Tennessee. I mean, you can add James Dalrymple or Dane Dalrymple, especially in Greco. But Trey McDaniel has wrestled really well for Army this past year. Thomas Snipes wrestled well for the Citadel at South Carolina. But, again, I go back to that. It's just super interesting when you look at the names because you got, wrestlers who are still in high school. Like Drew Gorman's just a rising junior. Kendrick Hodge, just a rising junior. And yet you've got others, Corey Land, who just finished his freshman year at UNI. And you've got, a bunch of them that have already wrestled in college for a year. So super interesting to see all of them in the same brackets and everything else. And, we're only listed as Southeast guys. Man, I'll tell you what, you look at the entire registration list. Woo!
Some of these brackets are meat grinders.
Yeah, they are. All right, so we already did the U20s for freestyle. Really, the only one for only a couple in Greco that I'm going to talk about real quick that you don't see in freestyle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Franklin Ordonez Fernandez from 82 kilos. Super good in Greco, really good from Florida. You got Jeremy Paradise, who is really, really good in Greco, but he's only registered in Greco. He's not registered in freestyle from what I could find. So those are two that I think you might want to pay attention to on the Greco side as well. All right.
Agreed.
So girls high school showcase. Now, I want to ask you this question. We just had women's nationals. We just had it.
I get the idea of it that you still want to have because they don't have you see. If it was up to me, you'd put girls nationals in the same tournament as U.S. Open and call it a day.
Right. Well, but the problem is you've got senior women who are competing for, at the U.S. Open, and senior women who are competing at women's nationals, right? So, and the other part is it's not very far apart. So it's just interesting.
I don't get it.
We have them like this. I don't know what the reasoning is.
Me neither. I don't get it, and it is what it is. But our overlords decided it, so that is how it shall be.
Well, you see a couple of some familiar names in both that wrestled out there. Evelyn Holmes Smith wrestled out there. She missed, I think she lost the blood rounds out at women's nationals. She's back at the high school women's showcase. Zao Estrada is also in the group. Caroline Gilstrap, so on and so forth. Probably the name that is biggest is Piper Fowler, who won out there just a week and a half ago?
Maybe not even.
Yeah, and now she'll be on the mats again coming up. But we don't see like Ame Prado. We don't see some of them as well. So it's pretty interesting. All right, so let's jump to the senior women because I don't know that many of these senior women. Am I wrong? Were the senior women at women's nationals, or was it just the U23s?
It was U20, U23.
All right, my fault. Yeah. All right, so we do get to see some of the senior women. Who should we be paying attention to?
Well, if I'm going a bit of a homer, you do have a lot of Bruton Parker flavor and a lot of wrestlers that if you watch the U.S. Open, you might just see Dawn Von Scrapp in the top right corner of a singlet, Alessandra Burgos, Lately Rivera, Savannah Pitts, Jocelyn Campos, India Page, Savannah Pitts, Sierra Hartfelder, Gabriela Galvez. So obviously, if I'm being a homer, I'm going to mention those girls because they're actually wearing my gear. And I also think you cannot overlook a girl like Caitlin Davis out of South Carolina and Diana Holmes out of Georgia. But of this group, the one that jumps off the page the most is Amani Jones, world team member, 55 kilograms here on the senior side of things. I think you have to look out for her.
Yeah, she just won U20? It wasn't
Yeah.
U23, it was U20, right?
I believe U20, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. And I think Anna Luciano was a national champion. I don't know if it was this past year or from a couple of years ago.
I think yeah.
Yeah, so definitely one to watch. All right, so let's wrap it up with the senior men.
In your main event of the evening.
And, we've got the senior men in Greco and the senior men in freestyle. And I'm going to tell you there's a couple things that stand out to me. Okay, first and foremost, as I'm looking through this list, right? You get to see like a Pat Lugo, back in Florida, that sort of thing. You get to see, a Caleb Henson, a Charlie Derrickide, we've seen their names, so on and so forth. If you look at the list of North Carolina wrestlers who were listed as from North Carolina, they're almost all from NC State, and they're not native North Carolinians, nor lineage or whatever.
I was just saying, I don't think that's how that works, because I don't think Pat Lugo is an Iowan. I thought you're supposed to represent the state you're from, not the state you're.
Well, they get to register wherever they want to register, right? And so they registered at, they're maybe they now live in Raleigh. And I just looked down the list.
I guess that means Devon Dodgens should register as a Michigander, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and speaking of Coach Dodgens, man, it's not often that you see a coach entered into one of the into the tournament.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you this, he's been working his tail off, also wearing Don Von Scrap and Fat and Scrappy branded gear at this event. I'm excited to see how he does. It's one of those things where, as an athlete, it's always interesting when your coach laces the shoes back up.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. I want you to look at one name, and you didn't know that I was going to talk about this, but if you look at Florida at 86 kilos, and I believe that's Dwight Gardner. And Dwight Gardner, that's the same Dwight Gardner who won an NCAA title in like the late 1990s. And he is being inducted into the Florida Hall of Fame in like 2 weeks. And he's getting ready to go out and wrestle in the US Open.
Love it. I mean, you got Rulon Gardner in there up top at 130 kilograms, for God's sakes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is an open tournament. All right. So is there anything else that kind of sticks out to you that of the senior men?
Not particularly. I mean, it's fun for me seeing some of my boys, like guys like Farber Hunt, Bon Henson, Derek Hott, Pace, Sean Houston's my teammate, but David Key, the guys I grew up with, the guys who I put the blood, sweat, and the tears in the training room of Jet. I'm gonna throw it us, and if you know, Bedard Elite Training Center. You like, this goes back then that I know some of these cats, so it's really cool to see, or Fisher's Wrestling Academy in certain cases. That's where I know these guys from. So it's cool to see them going in now at the highest level, and hopefully, playing next year we'll be right there with them. At least that's the hope.
Maybe lacing up some BMoney Beastin shoes while you do it.
Hey, why not? Only reason I didn't go is because I just wasn't going to be ready in time physically. I knew that, and I wasn't going to go. If I'm going to go to that type of a tournament, I'm not going compromised. And so.
Well, no, because that could be a bad situation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this really ain't the tournament to go in like the 75%. Draw freaking Aaron Brooks round one and get put on my head.
All right, so we that's this week's edition of SC and Scrappy. I hope you enjoyed the highlights from this weekend. I'll try to put together some of the videos. We had a great time covering it up there. I hope you enjoyed the interview. You can find the full interview on the YouTube channel. We'll post that as well. And our coverage of the US Open. And then the last thing I'm going to say before we wrap this up is Dave Schultz, Tricia Saunders award winners were announced this past week. we got an opportunity to give a shout out to all the award winners. But I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks that you and I are going to be able to sit down and have a few conversations with some of those award winners and talk about what that award means to them.
I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right, man. You have a good week. Do well in finals, and I will we'll touch base again in a week. Does that sound good?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Out.
Peace.